Hey guys, MultiTHUNDER here, and today I will be showing you the second episode of this series, how I made Light Reflections. If you haven't seen the track, or heard the track, should I say, it's on my SoundCloud, links in the description, go and check it out. I recommend you listen to it before you watch this tutorial, because a lot of it won't make sense, and just listen to the details in it if you can, and this will just whiz by and you'll be like, oh, well, you won't be like, I don't get this. What do I don't know what you're on about. To it. If you don't know what I'm on about, if you don't know what some things are, because I'm talking about in a semi-advanced level. So if you don't understand anything, I'll be happy to explain things in the comment sections. But anyway, let's get cracking. Last time we talked about kick drums, so next on the list is snare drums. So let's listen to the snare drum in the mix. So as you can hear, the snare drum is very poppy. It's got that high frequencies to it, but it's also got the low frequencies, which is basically what done this by layering, and I'll show you how I've done that. And it also sounds quite electronic but acoustic at the same time, which gives it that realistic feel, but also that electronic feel, which I really like. It's one of my favourite snare drum sounds that is used in a lot of dance tracks at the moment. Can't use any example because I can't think of any on the top of my head, but you'll be hearing a lot of it in upcoming tracks for a lot of artists. It's very common. But anyway, let's look at the first snare drum, which is the electronic snare drum. So as you can hear, it's actually very, very poppy. It hasn't got that much high end, really. It's got a lot of low end, and it's got a lot of reverb on it. So basically, yeah, that's pretty much it. It's got a compressor on it. The threshold is to minus 9.5, so the compressor kicks in at minus 9.5 dBs, and the ratio is at 3 to 1, which is not too strong but not too weak. So it's not too hard. It just gives it that fatness. And let's look at the acoustic snare drum. So as you can hear, compared to the electric snare drum, it is very much deeper. And yeah, so let's look at why. Basically, the compressor is exactly the same as the other one, which is handy, I think, because all I did was copy and paste it, and it sounded good. And I tweaked it a little bit, but I thought, oh, go back to how it was before. But let's look at the EQ compared to what the other EQ is. Now, looking at the first one, you can actually see that where I've boosted it, it's boosted at a higher frequency. It's actually an octave higher than the other one. This is because I wanted to give this, the electric snare drum, a higher pop. So it was an octave higher, which gives it a lot more fatness to it, a lot more clarity as well, which is what I really like in my snare drums. And it's a very interesting sound, I think. It works really well. And in the acoustic snare drum, which is one here, you can see that it's boosted a lot narrow. The Q factor, which is the bottom one here, is a lot narrower. So you can see that it boosts a small amount of frequencies, as this one boosts a lot more. So you're going to get, but the danger of doing that, you get very muddy sounds, which fat and muddy are very different. Fat is good, muddy is horrible. Horrible? I sounded very English then. Pardon for my English accent. If you're American, if you don't like it, tough. But anyway, yeah, let's just look at what I did for the build-ups in this track. Or before, I will look at that in a second, but let's look at the bus. Let's jumping ahead of myself here. First, I put both snare drums into a bus 1, which you do this by either clicking the sends, you click bus 1, snare drum, whichever one, and you boost it to your liking. You can press Alt, click, and it will go to 0. But I didn't do this. I clicked on the output, went to bus, and clicked snare drums. you can rename it. If you want to rename it, you go down here, you just say you want to rename snare drums, you double click it and you rename it. Snare drums. Yeah. And distortions. I use distortions on nearly every single one of my snare drums. It just fattens the sound up so nicely. It works really well, and it's just simple. It's really simple to use. You've got a tone control, which is the first thing I do, always the first thing you should do on distortion, is make sure you've got the tone right. Sometimes people like really low tones, but it tends to really be boxy, very boxy sound. And I don't tend to use a lot of distortion, just a little bit. A lot of time I use overdrive, because it's a lot, it's a cleaner distortion. But this just on the actual distortion plugin, it just gives a very fat sound. What time am I on? 5 minutes. Doing quite well. So I boosted it. The drive. So the drive is your gain, which is your input, and it's gone to plus 3 dBs, which is fairly. Let's listen to it. Listen to it without. So you can hear it sounds louder. And it is louder. Which is quite interesting because I've actually cut it by 0.5 dBs more than I boosted it. So if you're wondering why, it's because of the harmonics. The harmonics add they amplify the sound a lot more. Which can, if you've got a really weak signal and you need it to just cut through the mix just a little bit more, distortion's the thing for it. And with dance music, you want your kicks to cut through. I didn't use any distortion because I wanted my kicks to be clean. But on my snare drums, I almost always use distortion. It just works really well. It gives that fat sound, and you always want to cut more than you've boosted. Never cut the same or less than you've boosted, and never put the output higher. I don't know why they've allowed you to. I don't know why you'd want to do that, because it would just sound absolutely flipping it. I can't describe how. I'm not even going to show you how it sounds because I'll blow your speakers. But anyway, so let's look at the build up. So as you can see, here should I say, I'll pull this up in the piano roll, and let's get this on. So as you can see here, you can see that the pitch goes down to a C, which is a lot deeper. And I've also done it on here as well. I've done it on these. So both of these are exactly the same. They've synchronized perfectly with each other all the way through the track. But on the build-ups, I've done something a little bit different. Basically, I've gone down a tone. If you don't know what a tone is, it's what it was before. Going down one note and again, and that's a tone. Go down 2 notes. If you go down 1 note, it's a semitone. So if you go down 2 notes, it's a tone, etc., etc. But yeah, basically that's all I've done, and it actually helps the build up, because what you do, you get a lower sound, and then when you go in, it builds up, it drops, all the other instruments push forward, but the snare drum pulls back a little bit because it goes up in pitch. That is really handy, because you don't want your snare drum to be colliding with anything or fighting, because the whole idea in music is all the instruments are accompanying each other. So the snare drums are pushing and driving the synths or the guitar, or the drums are just, yeah. So, but you don't want. How often do you have a guitarist fighting with a drummer in a band? It happens all the time. Or a musician fighting with another musician. It just, like, physically just say, it just ruins the music, and they don't get practicing, and they just are not as good. The same in music, exactly the same, that if your snare drum sound is fighting with the synth sound, you're going to get some collision, and you don't want that at all. It's the last thing you want in your sound. So what I've done, let's just listen to it in the mix with the track. So as you can hear, it's a very low snare drum, and it will go up in pitch. So it gives that beefiness in the build up, and then it pulls back just a little bit to let the synth push forward. So it kind of, the synth and the snare drum kind of swap places, really, which is quite clever in a way. Don't want to brag. But yeah, that's basically it. That's all I've done with the snare drum. There's no claps in this, which is very unusual for this kind of dance music. A lot of claps are used, but you can use claps. It works really well, but I just didn't use them in any. I didn't feel the need to. And next session I'll be covering the hi-hat and the boom, because these are the last two percussion instruments really on this dance track. But yeah, anyway guys, thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already, because I've got a few tracks and more of these videos coming out soon. And yeah, and I've got a new track coming out hopefully in about a week or two's time, depending on when I can get these vocals done. But yeah, that'll be great. And have a good week guys, and take care of yourself. Goodbye.